So this is just a quick video for the people that have been asking about the airbrushing and what paints they use and how it all works. Because obviously for a lot of people, they know how to airbrush or they've seen people airbrush, but a few people have never used it, never used one and don't know nothing about it. So I've been asked a few questions, so I just said I'll do a little video and sort of squeeze in a little bit about the airbrush and what's what with it. So this type of airbrush is a dual action airbrush, and by dual action it just means there's the first action, which is to turn the air on, and the second action to pull back the nozzle needle for the paint to come out. So 1, 2. So when I'm painting Carnage and you can hear that noise and there's nothing happening, that's because there is nothing happening. You tend to want to try and keep the air on either just after and just before you start spraying, so you'll put the air on and then you start to spray. And the same with when you're finishing it. So if I was spraying a line, I would then reset the airbrush and then release. You don't want to just let go. If you just let go, the paint's still going to be flowing over the needle. The needle then traps it against the end of the nozzle, and it just blocks up the nozzle from the inside. So it don't mean it's going to stop working, but if you keep doing that, just letting go, eventually you're going to get splattering, and the airbrush the quality of your light, the quality of your work is going to start to deteriorate. And it'll also, sometimes you'll be spraying it, it'll just stop, nothing will happen. You'll touch it again and it'll just go psh, and just splat all over your work. So try to avoid that. So put your finger down, pull back for the paint. When you've finished, let go. Don't just let go of it like that. So how this works is there's a needle running down here. I'm going to show you how it's cleaned and everything in a bit, but basically here's your needle, and this is a 0.6, which is very big. This needle's not designed for like fine detail. You can still do fine detail, but it's not designed for that. This is designed for covering large areas. I mean, a good comparison would be when you see people spraying cars with like the jets with the big sprayers. They tend to use a 0.8 needle in those spray guns. So this is it's a pretty hefty needle, but you can still do really fine lines with it, no problem at all. So, but I'll show you that when I paint a model with these. So it's nothing special. It's just a small model. I'm just gonna show that it can be done with these household paints, normal artist paints. But I just wanted to show the airbrushes first because, like I say, it must be frustrating if you don't know, if you've never used one, and then no one's bothered to tell you how it all works. So, and I did think about that at the beginning. You just sort of presume that everyone's seen one, I guess. So that's that type of airbrush. Then you get this type, which is a side feed. So this is better for different reasons. One, you can hold on to the side of it, which makes it more steady. You can also tilt the cup in any direction. So if I want to spray at an angle like that, I can just turn this cup so that the paint won't spill, and I can spray at an angle, which is good for getting into some weird places. It's also really easy to clean. So you just pull this off. And your nozzle is nice and big, so if you drop it, you're not going to lose it, and you have no trouble cleaning it. One thing I will say while I'm here, if you've if you're thinking about getting into it, you buy these cleaning kits for your airbrush, okay, to clean it. I don't recommend using these because they have big sharp stabby pieces of metal coming out the end like that, and it can scratch the chrome off the inside of your airbrush, and you don't want that. So this is an Iwata Eclipse, and if you can see this, there's a tiny silver bit at the end. If you was to buy something like an Iwata Neo or an Iwata Revolution, which are their sort of entry airbrushes, that would be your nozzle. So you get a little spanner, and that would, so there's like a cone like this already coming out the end of the airbrush that you can't remove, and you just remove that tiny end piece to clean it. The only problem is, if you was to over tighten it even slightly, you can just snap that off, and it's stuck inside the airbrush forever unless you can get it out, and it's not easy. The other problem is obviously if you drop it, you're not getting it back, because if you drop it on carpet, that's gone. So I didn't get on with the Revolution, and that's why. It's just so fiddly. It slows everything down. So yeah, that's my airbrushes. Alright, so I'll just show you the boxes for those quickly. So that's the Hardner and Steinbach Infinity CR Plus 2-in-1. 2-in-1 just means you get two needles. You get a 0.15 and a 0.4, and Iwata Eclipse. And check out the deals on Amazon, because I got this for about £100 or something crazy. So £100 for one of these, that's like a bargain. So yeah, and when there was a problem with this one, actually the needle was bent, and by bent I mean someone had clearly dropped it. So if you drop an airbrush and the needle hits the floor, it will stick in the floor like a dart, and that's it, your needle's done. But Amazon was actually really nice, and they just told me to order a needle from them, switch the needles over, and then just send the broken needle back. Which I didn't think, I know they're not supposed to do that, but they did tell me. So, but if you buy a compressor off Amazon, some are advertised with these sort of cheap airbrushes. Don't fall for it. Normally when they say that they're free, they're not free. They're still sticking in like £10 for this or something, and it's not worth it. The parts on it are awful, and trying to learn with it. Trying to learn to airbrush with something like that is like trying to learn to drive in a clapped out Datsun from 1960. It's not going to be fun. There's no power steering. It just makes everything difficult. It's like you're ice skating uphill. So when I first started airbrushing, I first bought an airbrush and a compressor, I gave up pretty quickly. Like, it was just, it was unpleasant because everything was jamming and clogging, and it's because you're using cheap airbrushes. As soon as I bought a decent airbrush, things got easier, and it's just the way the materials are used. So in the more expensive airbrushes, you get like much better quality needles, so then the paint sticks to it less, which means there's less clogging and stuff like that. So you end up with more of a seamless learning experience. Whereas if with a cheap one, you're going to end up permanently stopping, starting, and it just, like I say, it just makes it not fun. And then you know what? I'll just go back to painting it by hand because it's easier. So next one is paints. So what are the best paints? Can I recommend any paints? You can use any paints. In a minute, the model that I'm going to paint in a moment, I've used these. So these are just just your normal artist paints. So you can use them, no problem. They're a little bit thicker, so you're gonna have to water them down. So all you do is you just take a blob of that, put it in a pot or something, or you can put it in one of these bottles, because you can buy bags of these off Amazon. You get like 15 or 20 in a bag for a £5 or something. Just squirt some in, add some thinner. This Villaggio thinner is pretty good. Don't use their primers, they're awful, but the thinner is pretty decent. So, you know, no problems there. And it's pretty cheap. So just put a bit of thinner in there. You want to go for this sort of consistency of sort of milk. So I'll just show you what a good consistency would be. So I'm just going to put a blob of paint here. That's a little thin. You could do with that's pretty decent, because that was a pretty big blob of paint as well. So it's gonna run a lot further. But I'll just show you. That would be bad. That's gonna spider. And you can see how it's soaking into the paper on the outside. And in the same ways that you can have paint too thin, you can also have paint too thick. So obviously this is going to take a lot of thinner, because it's so gloopy. So the ideal consistency would be about like this. So like I say, about sort of like milk. And you can go thicker, but like I say, that's just like a good sort of ballpark sort of thing, you know. The best paints that I can recommend for like an all-round beginner would be the Army War paint. So the Army Painter paints come in a big set, which I'm prepared to see it. So you get this mega set. You can get them individually, and you can buy a smaller set, but personally you may as well buy this bigger set, because you get everything that you see on the cover there. You get like a large selection of colours, you get some special effects like rust, you've got some metallics, and then you've got some washes as well. So you get like a good package, a good sort of all-round package. It does cost about £100, but for value wise, this paint is thicker than this. So it's designed to they are designed to be painted by hand, but they're very, very, very heavily pigmented, and they dilute great. So I've painted lots of models with them. I mean, I use these more than I use the Villaggio ones. So, and they're a lot more durable. And because they're thicker, but they've still got the high pigment content, you're gonna get 3 times the volume. So you're getting, I think these are the same 17mm split. No, these are 18mm bottles. So you're getting 40mm of paint, maybe more. So it works out much better value. I'll show you a couple of the effects ones. So these are like the effects ones, and they've got like quite a few on the website, but you can also, I don't recommend buying them from the website. I suggest you buy them from Amazon or something, because they do sell most of them on Amazon. They also sell them in a lot of arts and crafts and supply modelling shops. So the only reason why I say that is because when you buy them from armypainter.com, and they only have one like form of postage. Like there's only one option, and it's about from the just to the UK, it's about £15, something like that, 12, £11. Once they've put the 25% tax and stuff on there, I think I ordered 7 bottles that came to £14 something, but by the time they'd gone through the checkout, I think that was about £33 or something I'd ended up paying. But they really are cool paints. Strong pigment. You also get a little booklet as well. So even though I've never actually looked at it until today, but it's a lovely booklet, and it just basically takes you through how to paint models step by step, giving you little tips and stuff, showing what colours are best for what. Oh, it shows you the spraying. Well, if you're into airbrushing, you're not going to be buying their sprays, but their spray paints are supposed to be really crap. I've never used them, but that's what I've been told by people that do. But yeah, you get a nice little booklet that's going to teach you everything. Well, maybe not. Anyway, so yeah, I recommend buying the Army Painter paints if you're just starting out. If you can't afford them, then I would either suggest buying a small pack of Villaggio, but if you're just going to buy like that one tiny pack, you may as well just buy like a set of these off Amazon. You can get about 48 tubes of paint for £32, I think there was on offer. So, and you can just buy yourself a bunch of bottles and, like I say, a bottle of thinner or a couple of bottles of thinner, and it's enough to get you started. So that's an airbrush, and that's how it works, and that's paint. So again, this is just normal acrylic graduate acrylic paints. I'm just going to pull back the light there, and you can see the paint starting to come out now. Pull back more. Now obviously if you pull back real hard, that's what's going to happen. So when you get splatter like that, that's when you want to get rid of the tip dry. See where the splatter came from the tip dryer? You want to try and keep the airbrush moving. You don't ever want to stop in any one place. So as you can see, you can use standard acrylic paints, absolutely no problem whatsoever. In fact, to be honest with you, I've actually found them to be more durable than like Bellagio paints. So take away from that what you will. And by that I mean, like, I've sprayed something with these graduate acrylics and then had it be put down on hard surface while I've been working on it, and I've not had any scratches or any dings on it or scuffs. But whenever you use like Bellagio, even though you're working on a t-shirt and you've got something soft, you always tend to get the odd bit where it rubs off the paint, and it's got nothing to do with the paint job. It's just the fact that the paint doesn't adhere, but it doesn't like cling very well. I think the best paints I've ever used for durability are the Army War Painter brand for models. So now going back into the area that I left earlier, just touching that up. So yeah, so I'm going to do the other side with standard paints just so that there's no difference. Just trying to think then what the best channel is to watch. Airbrush Asylum is really good, and the control techniques that you use for canvas painting are the same as what you would use for this. A couple of people, at least a couple, have said that they've airbrushed in the past but didn't like it because of the colour changing, the time it takes. So if I want to change colour now to say black, so I'll take some cleaner. Always make sure you wipe the top of the paint before you try and put it into the airbrush. I'm going to take some thinner, just a dash of thinner on this. Mix the thinner with the paint. So I'm just going to start off by putting some shadows on this one. You're just gently pulling back, real gently. That's what happens if you don't keep wiping the tip. But the good thing about airbrushing is it doesn't matter if you go wrong. So if you put a big splodge here now, I wouldn't stop. I'd just carry on painting the model and then I'd just go back and touch that up. So on a good model, if this was like a proper model, you'd want to make sure that you got this underside first. Otherwise you'd have red, then you'd have probably red or a red and black mixed line, and then you'd have the black line of the underwear, which would kind of, it's not going to ruin it, but if you was to try and touch it up by hand, you're going to risk making a mess, or you're going to end up with that. So if that's what you're happy with, then that's fine. But if you want everything to be nice and tidy, and doing this demo with a 0.6 needle is like not exactly easy either, because it's you can still do really thin lines, but it's not made for doing that. The whole point of buying that 0.6 is for large areas, so it's more at home sort of spray. That's sort of why you buy it, to fill large areas. Yeah. So you can see it's got black paint in there now. Red, give me a red. Red right in front of me. You see that there? That was probably in the paint. So just because you're buying Villaggio paints or pre-mixed airbrush paint don't mean you're not going to get little bits in there sometimes as well. Normally I filter most of my paints, so before I start a model I will get one of these empty bottles ready, or one of these empty things, anything really, and I'll just pour the paint through an airbrush filter. These are actually car spray paint filters, 280 UM, but it doesn't really matter on the size. I mean, ideally you'd get the smaller ones, but these work for my 3D printing as well, so because they fit in the funnel to pour the resin back into the bottle, and they was really cheap. Like, I got a pack of like 1,000 or something for about £10. Good stuff. Now you're going to come back over to the shadows. So yeah, that's basically what's going on. And it doesn't matter what colour you change. You can say, well, you just changed from black to red, that was easy. It don't really make a difference if you're going black to yellow. As long as you put like at least one round of cleaner through it, and then just go straight on to the next colour, you should be fine. Just make sure you do it, you spray it out on a little piece of paper first. So once you've finished putting a couple of rounds of cleaner through the airbrush, just make sure the nozzle's clean, and that's it. You don't have to do any more. You can just leave it. You can just leave that now and get back to painting by hand or doing whatever it is that you need to do. You don't have to strip the whole thing down to clean it or anything like that. You are going to have to strip it at some point, and it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but this is where which airbrush you pick comes in. So if you've picked something like the Hardener Steinbeck, all you're going to do is take this off, you always want to pull the needle out from the front. You don't ever want to pull it out from the back, because if you pull it out from the back, all the paint on it's going to scrape up and it gets stuck inside. So, and all you want to do with that is just get a bit of cleaner, first, make sure you've got all the paint off the tip. Nozzle. I don't recommend using these cleaning tools. They're cheap and crude, and they've got, you can see the metal sticking out the end there. That will scratch the chrome off the inside of your airbrush. So if you just bought a really nice airbrush, you don't really want to go shoving things like that in it. So I use these dental things. Just put a little bit of fluid in there. And as you can already see, it's hardly coming out with any paint on it at all. And that's just because you've flushed it with some cleaner. Eventually, if by the end of the week sort of thing, if you've been airbrushing a lot, you have to do a full strip down. So this is just one of those cheap little cleaning kits. You can get a proper hardener stone back one, which I have ordered, I think. Yeah, put that in. Normally you just put this in through the back, or it don't really make a difference, but actually another thing is needle juice. So this is lube for your needle. It's going to stop paint sticking so fast, and you also use it to lubricate all the mechanism as well. So. You always want to be careful when you're doing this, because you don't want to hit this metal inside. So let's push it straight down. So when you put this nozzle on, you want to make sure that the nozzle's clean. A good way is to move the needle back and forth. So poke it into the nozzle and pull it back. When I say poke it in, I don't mean ram it forward. Just move it back and forth. If it keeps sticking, then that can be an indicator that there might still be a little bit of paint inside your nozzle. So if you want to, change the pressure, like the strength of the strip, the pullback, you can change this here. So by loosening this, it makes it more loose, and by tightening it up, makes it harder to pull back. So they're really customizable to each individual. So I just thought I'd show you a little sneak peek on Carnage. That took so many hours to do all this line work. It's not funny. I think it's going to look really cool when it's done. So I just thought I'd give you a little sneak peek there. And before I finish up, I'm probably going to lead out with a couple of pictures, because people ask about whether or not I still paint canvases, so I'll just show you the canvases that I'm working on. I just thought I'd show you these quickly. This was actually the first painting that I ever used an airbrush on. So I had to do like loads and loads of practice runs of the planets. Then I had to tape it all up and do all the galaxies and stuff. Which I've not actually been doing any painting since I started doing the models. I almost forgot. I've got a human one as well. Masters of the Universe. But yeah, I work on these slowly, a little bit at a time.